Welcome back! My name is Baller Scuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1983. Today, we're going to talk about Ultima 3. The story of Ultima 3 takes us back to Richard Garriott. We have talked about Richard Garriott before. He, as you might have expected, is responsible for both Ultima and Ultima 2. However, for Ultima 3, things have changed. For Ultima 3, Richard Garriott decided to release the game through his own company. Garriott was encountering problems collecting his royalties from the publishers of his previous games. So, in order to protect himself, Richard Garriott, along with his brother Robert, his father Owen, and programmer Chuck Bush, founded Origin Systems on March 4th, 1983. Origin Systems originally started in the Garriott's garage in Houston, Texas. It was primarily founded to help release Richard Garriott's next game after the successes of Akalabeth, Ultima 1, The First Age of Darkness, and Ultima 2, The Revenge of the Enchantress. That next game would be Ultima 3, Exodus. Ultima 3 Exodus is a computer role-playing game. It takes place in the same world as Ultima and Ultima 2, taking place after the events of both games. Unlike the previous two games, Ultima 3 has the player control a party of characters, 4 in total. Those party members can be one of 11 different classes and one of 5 different races. Much like the previous games, the player will move this party through a world, exploring towns and dungeons, in search of a way to stop the new threat to Sosaria. Ultima 3 features fully 3D dungeons, unlike the wireframe dungeons of the previous games. Ultima 3 also features a soundtrack for the first time in the series, composed by Kenneth Arnold. Origin Systems released Ultima 3 Exodus to Apple II computers on August 23, 1983. Origin also released the game to Atari 800, Commodore 64, and IBM PC computers in 1983. That is the short backstory to Ultima 3 Exodus. With that now told, it's time to look through the game's manual. Specifically, we will be looking at the Book of Play that came with the Commodore 64 version. It reads, "Welcome back, O illustrious adventurers! Long has been thy sojourn in this strange realm, though 'tis a fitting respite for great heroes. Glorious are the names of those adventurers who slew the mighty wizard Mondane and his evil consort Minax. Lord British's minstrels still sing thy praises for the epic battles waged in the overthrowing of those 2 crimson necromancers. The chronicles of Ultima 1 and Ultima 2 bear witness to thine effects on behalf of the good subjects of the realm of Sosaria. The time of thy rest is now o'er. Thou wouldst not be here if thou hadst not heard the distant braying of the war horns, or felt in thy blood the cry of kinsmen in dire peril. Thou art called, and from such a calling none of the people may turn aside. It is thy duty and thy destiny. Preparing for thy journey. Gather close while thou art briefed on what changes has transpired since last thou guested forth. The gateway will now hold 4 adventurers instead of just 1. 2 paths thus radiate out before thee. Thou may choose to venture forth alone, in hopes of recruiting retainers once thou arrives in Sosaria. Or thou may gather together up to 3 other adventurers of the people who rest here, and sally forth with them at thy side. Bare is the back who hast not kin to protect it. Decide quickly, the horns seem louder. Some ritual preparation is needed before thy journey can begin. First, study what is contained within this square pouch. It is thy key to open the gateway. Guard it well, lest harm befall thy party. Before examining the disc even once, you must follow the arcane rituals described on the back page of the player reference card. Enclosed in thy pouch is also a rare cloth map, a reference card, and 2 eldritch manuscripts. Unless thou art trained in mystical matters, open not these 2 books upon destruction of thy soul. Both of these ancient books were presumed lost for many centuries. By means of portentous visions, Lord British's advisors were led to their ancient resting places. The manuscripts contain very powerful lore whose time has come to be used again. It is said that the Wheel of the Heavens now heralds a great conflict, and that even the great earth snake will rise from the watery depths. The dreams of the wise are thus disturbed these days. Great evil walks the land again. The map of Sosaria is, alas, incomplete. The great cartographer Hawkwind was gravely wounded by a roving band of brigands before he could finish the map. None of the towns, castles, dungeons, or other special places are shown. You will have to use pins or markers to indicate where each lies as you find them. It is rumored that much lies hidden, just out of sight. There are then instructions of the controls, as well as pictures and descriptions of gameplay, as well as shops and monsters. We will take a closer look at these while we're in the game itself. The Book of Play ends with a section named The Adventure. With the fall of Mondain and Minax, peace had flowed like molten honey around all of Sosaria. Everywhere Lord British's subjects were happy and prosperous. A great cancer had been exorcised from the world body. The people were cleansed again, and there was much rejoicing in the towns. Even the orcs had disappeared from sight after the fall of Minax's castle, as chronicled in Ultima 2. 20 years the peace lasted. 20 years is also the time needed for an infant to become a person. From the ruins of Minax's castle has come several fragments of a manuscript which hints at a dark secret. There appears to have been an unholy alliance between Mondain and his young apprentice Minax. Something had fructified from that union, but whether that something was of man, monster, or demon, the manuscript fragments were eerily silent. What had become of the Hellborn prodigy? No clues existed. Time passed, and the omens began to be troubled. Comets clashed across the sky, and rumbles were heard deep in the ground. Then one day, in a fiery birth of molten lava, an island rose up in the middle of the ocean. None could approach it, for the heat and steam were too great. Some drunken sailors claimed to have had a glimpse of the island when the steam was momentarily blown away by a strong wind. They swore that a castle existed in the middle of that inferno, but thou knows how reliable is the word of a drunken sailor. Then the sweet flowing rhythm of country life was shattered. Orc drums began to pulsate through the hills and mountains, and the horrible raids began. The outlying settlements all moved into the safety of the village fortresses. Shortly thereafter, a pirate fleet appeared suddenly, and commerce was swept from the seas. An evil power was rising in the west, and all the earth grounded to its flexing. When tales emerged that the great earth serpent had risen from its long slumber at the bottom of the ocean, people began to cry that the end of the world was at hand. Lord British sent his most trusted and talented advisor out to uncover the facts behind these wild rumors. Weeks passed, then a shattered man was found wandering in the groves outside the castle. Some terrible sight had blasted his reasoning. He just kept repeating, "From the depths of hell, he comes for vengeance." What he, she, it was remained unclear. The spread of its evil powers, however, was very clear. Lord British sent out a call for all of the heroes of the people to rally. That is why thou art here today. Thou heard the call and answered it. Thy task before thee is not easy. Evil walks the land openly. attacking all travelers. Thou and thy companions will need to grow stronger rapidly if thy party is to survive. Seek among the ancient paths for long-forgotten truths and powers. One possible clue as to the identity of thy nemesis has been discovered. A derelict merchant ship was recently towed into port. No crewmen were aboard, alive or dead. Everyone had vanished, as if plucked by some evil force off the boat. The only thing found was a word written in blood on the deck. Exodus. The back of the book reads, I, Lord British, would like to thank the following persons for their efforts in creating this book. Roe R. Adams III for the eloquent writings herein. Dennis R. Lubay for the magnificent illustrations within this book. Special thanks goes out to those who assisted through long hours of work and playtest. Roe R. Adams, Ken Arnold, Chuck Bush, Richard Garriott, Winfield Kang, James Van Artsdalen, Mike Ward, and Margaret Weigers. To all those persons found within this game, I extend a warm greeting. The game also comes with a cloth map, which shows the continent of Sosaria. As described before, it has no indications of cities or dungeons. There are 2 Eldritch manuscripts that come with the game. The first is titled The Book of Amber Runes. It reads, Welcome, O Pilgrim. Take up and guard this book of arcane runes. It contains the tools of thy new power. No longer art thou an initiate of the 5th circle. Thine old book of jade runes holds no power here. Surviving the spiritual transfiguration of the great Stygian abyss hath earned for thee the mantle of adept of the 6th circle. Few indeed have the strength or skill to cross the abyss. Study and use wisely the powerful knowledge contained herein. Their careful use will enable thee to succeed in any quest. Squandering their strength will bring about thy ruin. May thou live and grow wise in interesting times. The druid Selzhennik, Archmage, Keeper of the 9th Circle. A. Rapond. There was a time long ago when the lands were free of the wretched creatures known as orcs, goblins, and trolls. These creatures did not evolve naturally, but rather are the magical mutations performed by demented magicians. Now these creatures have prospered through many generations, and their horrors are well known. Have with thy person a staff of yew, preferably cut from a hard and fine-grained sapling. If orcs, goblins, or trolls threaten thy party, raise thy staff before them, and speak the name of this rune of dispelling. By casting this rune, thou shalt be attempting to dispel the magic which is part of their inner being. B. Mitar. Place upon thy palm and close in a strong fist any small projectile of wood or stone. Strike it once upon thy breast, while chanting the incantation of Mitar. Manji, Mula, Nespon, Levi, Mitar, Nopsen, Alum, Kavi. Hurl this talisman toward thine enemy. Magic in the form of a shimmering sphere of iridescent light will spring from thy hand to strike thy foe. The magic contained therein will enter his body and disrupt his life force. Depending on the skill and concentration invested in its conjuring, the spell can deliver the blow of an insolent child or a stalwart knight. C. Lorem. Before entering any dungeon, cave, or even houses with unsteady lanterns, be sure that thou hast prepared a goodly supply of lorem dust. This is easily done by collecting the fine dust from a spider's bath which has been warmed by a strong sun for many hours. Gather the dust in a chamois bag and seal the sun's energy within it by singing these words. Obre Euricum Obla Sum. To release the energy, chant these same words in reverse order and cast a small portion of dust into the air. A warm, soft, magical light of short duration will be produced. D. Dor Akron. Very useful when one desires to bypass a particularly bothersome portion of a dungeon. Dor Akron is cast with the aid of the left forepaw of a badger. Store the paw with care, for if it is damaged in any way which would hinder the badger's movement, thy way will be similarly impeded. Having made these preparations, when thou desires to enact the augury, gather thy party into a ring. While holding the paw, chant this ancient rhyme. Lidlin spulger id skrin, gruen beast Trentelben. When this spell is cast, the mage and his companions will be transported to the next lower level of inhabitation. E. Sur Akron. This rune is closely related to Dor Akron, direction being the only difference in effect. In this case, the dried wing of a bird is needed. The bird must be shot through the breast with an arrow whilst in flight. Thread the wing on a leather thong and tie it to the lip of thy staff. Once again, gather thy party into a ring, and while holding the wing, intone the verse of magical movement. Lidlin spulger idstrin, found beast fentry chem. As the words are chanted, thy party will be lifted through the floor above thee to the dungeon's next higher level. F. Fulgar. This incantation is a powerful weapon in battle. It requires a golden rod wrapped with iron and a vial of magical water collected from a meadow pond at the very moment lightning touches its surface. Keep the vial sealed until battle is nigh. Then touch the rod to the vial and level it at thy foe, whilst shouting these words, Flamin' Fleetus Pondi. All of the energy will be conducted through the golden rod, and a fiery ball will spin a searing path toward thine enemy. It will unfailingly strike him with a force strong enough to kill most common men, and cause great damage to beasts of greater strength. G. Dag Akron. This incantation requires that a pattern of rays extending from a common origin be drawn on the ground whilst the following chant is recited. Dag Fullness Akron, Frida Akron Bunt. As each ray is drawn, a member of thy party will disappear, and then with the final stroke, thee too shall vanish. In the next moment, at some random location on the terrestrial plane, each of the members of thy party and finally thyself will appear. This rune can only be used once on the Sosarian surface. It will always take thee someplace, but thy destination is a matter of speculation. H. Mentar. In order to cast this most terrifying spell, an oak gall must be collected of the sort most often found on ancient trees in dark and gloomy forest folds. Dip the oak gall in molten wax while chanting this verse from the tome of Mentar. Zanbar Lichin, Surdi Mentar. Then, when battle is upon thee, crush the oak gall within thy hand. As the gall collapses, a blue ball of screaming horror will fly toward thine enemy. It will invade his mind and irreparably corrupt his mental process, in direct proportion to thine own intelligence. I. Dag Lorum. This spell is similar in effect, but more enduring than Lorum. Place a golden dagger in strong sunlight until it is hot enough to burn skin. Then scrape it heavily against a stone until a golden dust is produced. As the dust collects on the stone, chant these words and gather the dust into a silken bag. Obram Eureka Obla Sum, Eureka Mani Sum Levi. When the need for extended illumination arises, hold the silken bag and shake it. A small portion of the dust will release its energy in the form of an enduring golden shimmering light. J. Fall Divi. The ability to cast a clerical spell is a great power indeed. Fall Divi will open before thee a tremendous range of power otherwise inaccessible to the sixth circle. The performance of this invocation is not a simple task, and often does not succeed. Sprinkle thy body with holy water and slowly chant the prayer of Fal Divi. Fal Divi Dominea. Fal Divi Requiescem. Refer to the cleric's book and do as the spell therein requires. If this spell is properly chanted, unto thee will come the power to use any of the supplications of the cleric's book. Beyond this page lie the advanced spells of the sixth circle. Do not venture too soon into the dark range of these spells, until thou hast not only conquered the Stygian abyss, but also can use its power at thy will. The force of these runes will be beyond thy skill. When the shadow of death has grown familiar to thy sight, and thou hast learned the mastery of magic, then at last these spells will be thine. Before these spells thy foes will cower, but take heed to use them wisely, for they shall be earned at great expense. K. Noxum. This spell is the first of the multi-pronged attacks, and can be of great aid when thou art attacked by a large band of formidable foes. When the 2 moons of Sosaria are new, travel to the entrance of the Dungeon of Fire. Gather some of the volcanic ash which is abundant there. On the same night, mix this with herbs of cinnamon and ginseng in equal proportion. The use of this magical mixture requires that thou speak the rune of Noxum before hurling the ashen mix toward thine enemies. Noxum menton lanu flamma. As thou dost, it will catch flame and rush at thy foes, thwarting each with a devastating blow. L. Decorp. The sun hath made its consecutive cycles, and thou hast gained great experience in magic. Thy skill and power have now reached the sphere of direct magical determination. With the intonation of this spell, thou dost draw on the magical force of all life and focus it upon thy foe. Sing the song of Decorp, and the air will shake with the war of magic rushing to thy command. Upon whomever thou shalt indicate, the magic shall descend, and their life shall be extinguished. Always and completely. Non chrono divani, pas numen ti soni. M. Altair. Until this time thou hast enacted thy runic powers to bring magic into this world. Now, as an advanced adept of the assembly of the sixth circle, thou may use the magic of this world to move beyond it. First, gather a fistful of sand, and while repeating the enchantment of Altair, let it flow from thy hand onto the ground. Alt man full minar, lay em crim bonter. As it falls, time itself will slow and finally stop, allowing thy party to move freely in the suspended state. The world will be temporarily frozen and at the mercy of thy will. N. Dagmentar. Dagmentar is a powerful multi-pronged conjuration that will wreak havoc among thy foes in a manner worthy of its advanced rating. On the darkest night of the summer, trap an owl, old and wise. Sacrifice the owl upon a stone altar, keeping only its eyes. Enchant them with the following verse. Fendi mentar divi, crembi mentar boni. When battle is nigh, repeat the stanzas until the heaviness of magic in the air becomes oppressive to the labor of thy lungs. Smash the eyes between thy hands. Thy foes will be struck a savage blow with damage directly related to thine intelligence. O. Necorp. On the night of a full moon, acquire the liver of one who is dying of the black rot. Hang the organ deep within the forest to dry, and allow 6 fortnights and a day to pass. Grind it into a fine powder while chanting these words. Don corpus mieda, futs rieda don nemi. Store the powder in several small vials. When the need arises, throw a vial above the head of thine enemy's party. It will magically shatter, releasing the loathsome rot upon their company. they will be quickly transformed into putrid vestiges of their former beings, with little strength left for battle. P. This exorcism has no name, for the words should never be written or spoken, save the occasion when life is to be banished unto the realm of night. This most powerful invocation carries the name of the Dark One. The enactment of this rune requires thine utmost concentration. With the staff of Yu, trace upon the ground the protective pentagram. Light a candle at the point most generally in the direction of thine enemies. Cast some sulfur dust into the flame, and speak the name of the evil one. All foes who hear this utterance shall be dashed violently into certain destruction, possessing no more life than the stones upon which they lie. I, Lord British, would like to acknowledge the following persons for their invaluable assistance in creating this book. Margaret Ellen Weigers for the majority of works herein. Roe R. Adams III for the introduction and conceptual assistance. Richard A. Garriott for a great deal of uneducated editing. Robert, Marcy, Owen, and Helen Garriott for educated editing. A special thanks to Helen M. Garriott for the wonderful illustrations throughout this book. The second manuscript is titled The Ancient Liturgy of Truth. It reads, Know ye that the ancient liturgy of truth hath been in the care of our sect for 3,000 years. Never through the passing of each generation hath our sacred custodianship been betrayed. We now enjoin thee, guard well the secrets held within these pages. For thee they shall be an immeasurable blessing, but if they are revealed to one of the unenlightened, great harm could befall him. The proper use of supplications contained within this manuscript will be thine aid in combating the evils of this world. Supplications herein are listed in ascending order of power. Most of them will be unusable until thou hast trod many paths and gained great wisdom. If thou devotes thy whole being to these truths, the power to perform actual miracles will be granted thee. As thou art exalted enough to be close to the One, the power even over life and death may be thine. Take heed that thou dost not use these precious gifts in a frivolous manner, but for the betterment of the order. Receive now my blessing through the dark veil of time. Know always that within thyself truth was discovered, and that this truth forms the basis of unyielding power. The Prophet Elazarkanan. A. Pontori. Evil takes many forms throughout Sosaria, and some of the most evil are the undead. Skeletons, ghouls, and zombies roam free in dungeons, forests, and open terrain. Although they are formidable opponents in battle, there is a basic weakness in their essence. These servants of evil are vestiges of former living beings, now inhabited by an evil force. If thou should encounter undead creatures, raise thy ankh of truth before them. If thou dost stand strong in the spirit of good, evil shall be dispelled from their being, and only their rotting corpses shall remain. B. Apar Unem. Often the chest which thou shalt find along thy journeys will contain a trap, the intent of which is to damage thee and thy party. Since thou dost have the innate ability to know the true nature of evil, thou can overcome this difficulty. To open a chest with no risk of injury to thyself or thy party, pour a few drops of holy water into the lock, and invoke the aid of the One who is all truth by raising the holy ankh over the chest. It will open freely and allow thee to grasp its inner treasures. C. Sanctu. Thy powers for healing will be often needed. The healing of minor wounds can be accomplished with this simple supplication. Through the channel which thy selfless devotion creates in thee, truth and forces of good can act directly in this world. Merely lay thy hands upon the one who is to be healed, and his wounds will be mended beneath thy touch. In the beginning thine ability will be limited, but with thine other powers, thy capacity to act as a healer will grow and be strengthened by experience. D. Lumine. The powers of thine enlightenment shall gradually unfold before thee. Resting at thy hand is the ability to enchant objects in a manner which will make them glow. Whilst holding thy staff aloft, repeat the name of this enchantment. Doing so, the power of the truths within thee will cause thy staff to glow with a soft blue light. Realize, however, that this light will not be long sustained, for the power brought through thee unto thy staff will slowly radiate away, and soon will dim and fade. E. Rek-Su. Part of thine enlightenment is the realization that there are no boundaries. When this truth is known unto thee, the material world is far less limiting than ordinarily supposed. As thou descendeth deeper and deeper into the bowels of the earth, thou shalt likewise be descending into greater evil. Being thyself of a good nature, this tends to give thee a natural buoyancy, as if in water. Speak the name of this supplication whilst touching thy staff to the ceiling of a dungeon passage. This will cause the ceiling to become translucent. Thee and thy party will freely float to the next higher dungeon level. F. Rek-Du. The range of thine ability for spiritual movement is not limited to ascension. Far below the earth's surface, and far below the deepest recesses of the deepest dungeon, flow the molten streams and rivers which feed the earth's core. Here also resides the great evil. Due to thy natural buoyancy, downward travel is somewhat more difficult and less desirable than upward. If thou must descend into evil, speak the name of this supplication whilst tapping thy staff upon the floor. The floor will become translucent. Thee and thy party will slowly sink to the next lower dungeon level. G. Lib-Rek. This is the most difficult of the spiritual movements. The planar motion allowed here must begin within a dungeon chamber. Lib-Rek differs from the two previous supplications in the following way. Instead of the earth allowing thy physical form to pass, now thy form itself shall become translucent. As thou dost fade in one location, thou shalt slowly appear in another. To initiate this motion, speak the name of this invocation whilst circling thy staff above thy head. As thou stoppeth the spinning staff, so wilt thy journey stop. H. Alcort. Alcort is a specialized form of healing. Poison is a horror all beings fear, for with it comes almost certain death. Only with the assistance of the divine power can thou halt the ravages of this great evil. With thy touch, the poison coursing in the veins of thy companion shall be transformed into a life-giving fluid which soothes the body and brings peace unto the soul. Thou can rest confident that thou hast delivered one from the grasp of poison. This power has been promised by the one whose covenant has never been broken. I. Sequitu. Occasionally during journeys unto the lower depths of the subterranean, thy party may run into great trouble. This could be the death or near death of a party member, starvation besieging thy entire party, or becoming lost with little hope of finding thy way. This supplication is the beseechment of the greater truth to aid the weary traveler in escaping his rocky tomb. If thou raiseth thy holy Ankh into the air, and crieth out the name of this invocation, thee and thy companion shall rise forth from the depths, guided by the divine truth unto the Sosarian surface. J. Samane. Thine enlightenment hath expanded, and will continue to unfold like the star-filled heavens above. The first light which thy truth created for thee was wondrous indeed, and luminance of this sort will continue to be of great service to thee. Yet in order to fulfill some greater needs, more enduring illumination is required. If thou dost now meditate on this enchantment, thine entire self will radiate with the light of truth, know that even this light cannot be sustained indefinitely, for it doth draw from thine own inner force. K. Sanctu Mani. The grasses have grown and seeded many times since thy journey began. Thou hast trod many paths and gained much wisdom. Thou hast now the power to perform actual miracles, to take one who has been shredded by an opponent's sword, quivering on the threshold of death, and restore him to life. This miracle is now thine. Prepare a small tin of fine scented oil, and ask that it be blessed with the perfection and holiness of truth. Anoint the wounds with the oil, allowing it to penetrate deeply. Before thine eyes the flesh will draw together and be restored, and the blood will once again begin to flow through his veins. L. Vieda. If thou should lose thy way, either in the gloomy crevices of a dungeon or in a dark forbidding forest, the miracle of Vieda can light thy way. Meditate on thy need for guidance for a goodly time, and when thou dost feel sufficiently purified, rub a small quantity of holy water onto thine eyelids. If thou hast meditated sufficiently, the greater truths shall miraculously unfold before thine eyes. Whether thou art in a dungeon or on the surface, a vision of thy current surroundings will come to thee. M. Excune. Occasionally thee and thy companions will be set upon by creatures of great might and evil. Opposing these foes can be a difficult task at best. The Liturgy of Truth provides also for this need. Should thy party encounter an evil foe of great strength, thou may wish to call upon the miracle of Excune. By holding the holy Ankh of truth in the direction of thy foe, and speaking the name of this great miracle, thou can direct the pure light of the holy force of truth at thy foe, and the life within one of thy foes shall cease. N. Surmandum. Thine enlightenment hath led thee to step beyond almost every limitation of this earth. It is now within thy power to step into the realm of death and draw one who has been there engulfed back into the world of life. Release thy spirit and allow it to venture into the very shadow of death, touching the spirit of the one who slumbers there. Lead thy poor companion back from the shadow of death, and life will once again be his. If, however, thy companion's strength of will is not strong enough to make the return journey, the backlash from this failed miracle will turn his body to ashes. O. ZXK UQYB. The letters which head this page represent the 7 words of anti-creation. They are the words which release the fury of truth upon the world. No entire word is ever written, for should even the letters which represent their sounds be brought together on a page, the release of power would cause destruction of untold magnitude. If thou should encounter a situation so evil as to require their use, speak them softly, only to the air beside thee. Most of thy foes will be struck down with a force so strong it will end this life, and all other potential lives within them. P. Anju Sermani. Once a body hath turned to ash, the soul which once inhabited it is sent on to its next life. It therefore takes a miracle of enormous magnitude to reclaim it. Realize first that the spirit must leave another body and another life in order to return to thee. If thou perceives that the need for the return of thy companion is so great as to be willing to give 5 marks of thy wisdom in sacrifice, then beseech the one who is truth and wisdom. Allow a tear from each of thine eyes to fall upon the ashes. As thy tears mix with the ashes, so shall they reconstitute before thee, and life shall be restored. I, Lord British, would like to acknowledge the following persons for their invaluable assistance in creating this book. Margaret Ellen Weigers for the majority of works herein, Roe R. Adams III for the introduction and conceptual assistance, Richard A. Garriott for a great deal of uneducated editing, Robert, Marcy, Owen, and Helen Garriott for educated editing. A special thanks to Helen M. Garriott for the wonderful illustrations throughout this book. There is also a reference card which shows some controls and guides on how the game functions. Finally, there is an offer for Secrets of Sosaria, which is a guide that must be purchased separately that provides hints and tricks for beating the game. Those are the physical items that came with Ultima 3. With those now explored, it's time to play the game for ourselves, but that will have to wait for our next video. That's going to do it for this part of Ultima 3. My name is Baller Scuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video when we play Ultima 3 Exodus for ourselves.